I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch network. I want to make a video update now on what in the world is the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals doing after it stayed or blocked President Biden's student loan debt forgiveness program back on October 21st of 2022 following a lawsuit that was filed by Nebraska and several other Republican states, including Missouri, Arkansas, Kansas, South Carolina, and Iowa. All of these states joined in this lawsuit to try to block President Biden's student loan forgiveness program, which would forgive the debt of up to about $10,000 for individuals making $125,000 or less, and up to $20,000 in student debt forgiveness for Pell Grant recipients. But all of the MAGA, Republican, right-wing, Federalist Society groups have tried to attack Biden's student loan debt forgiveness program from all these different angles, and they had lost because federal judges have found there to be no standing for the individuals to sue, because there's a lot of these like private citizens who said that they're just taxpayers, and they would make up these like AstroTurf groups like we're the Brown County Taxpayer Association, and they would, bring a case in Green Bay before in the federal court there, and they would say, look, our taxes are going to go up as a result of the student loan debt forgiveness program, and we don't want students to have their debt forgiven, and that harms us. And the court said, you don't have standing to do that. Look, if you don't want to get your student loan debt forgiven, you don't meet the criteria, don't apply for the program, but you have no standing to sue. You're not actually suffering an injury. But one of the things that these MAGA Republican or right-wing, whatever you want to call them now at this point, Republican states all joined together and did is said, what if we come together and try to block the Biden student loan debt forgiveness program by saying we as states would be injured because it would affect the income we make by taxing people, if potentially that we would be able to tax the debt that is forgiven as income in the future, and because we wouldn't receive that income, that is a way we could claim that we are injured and then try to attack the student debt forgiveness program, which invoked what's called the HEROES Act of 2003. And what the HEROES Act basically said is that, if there is an emergency or for national emergency or in the event of like a war, a president can invoke the HEROES Act, and the Department of Education can engage in certain things like alleviating student loan debt. And so it was like war or emergency. And so Biden invoked that the same way, frankly, the Trump administration had invoked the HEROES Act to temporarily stop the collections of student loans. So that was invoked under the HEROES Act. But what the Department of Education said under the Biden administration is, look, we're going to give this very surgical debt relief of up to $10,000 or $20,000 for Pell Grants if you meet the criteria of $125,000 in income or less. We will forgive those loans, and then we will really focus on helping Americans who need it the most as a result of the pandemic and other emergency conditions. And what these Republican states are arguing is that you never had the authority under the 2003 HEROES Act to engage in this student debt relief here. But to get to that argument, you have to establish standing first, that you're going to be injured. So the first way these states tried to argue that they had standing, and they sued, I think, in late September of 2022, and they filed their case in the Eastern District of Missouri. The judge that they drew was a appointee of George W. Bush, I believe, and they argued that they had standing because of the taxation issue that I discussed earlier, that they would be deprived of additional taxes because they couldn't tax student debt relief as income. But as the court pointed out there, you aren't currently taxing debt relief as income. So that is a speculative injury. And the other thing that the states basically argued was that it would basically hurt their ability to the states have certain agencies that can engage in collections efforts, and they can gain income from the collections of people who don't pay their student loans. And so it's a little bit complicated, but they also argued that, well, we can't make that income as well from collections conduct, and so therefore we are injured. And then we want to now challenge that the Secretary of Education should not have invoked the HEROES Act as the enabling statute that would allow the student debt relief program to be implemented. And so the Republican appointee, the federal judge in Missouri, I did another video on this, but just to give you the recap, said, no, you don't have standing. Case dismissed. Then the states filed an appeal to the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeal, because that is the Court of Appeals that oversees cases that are brought within the district courts here, in this case, the Eastern District of Missouri. And then here on October 21st, the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals issued an order which stayed or blocked Biden's administration, the Biden administration, from giving the student debt relief until a further order is made. And so let me just read to you what their order was on October 21st. This is from the United States Court of Appeals for the Eighth Circuit. They say, appellant's emergency motion for an administrative stay, and appellants here is the state of Nebraska and these Republican-led states. So their emergency motion for an administrative stay prohibiting appellees, in this case the Biden administration, from discharging any student loan debt under the cancellation program until this court rules on appellant's motion for an injunction pending appeal is granted. The request for expedited briefing on the motion for an injunction pending appeal is granted as follows. And then there's a briefing schedule. Appellee's response in opposition shall be due by 5 p.m. on Monday, October 24th, and thereafter appellant's reply, if any, will be done on Tuesday, October 25th, 2022. And so it was an expedited briefing schedule. So all briefing was submitted on October 25th by all of the parties. And what they did in that order, what the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals did, is they said, look, what the states are asking for is an injunction so that they can file an appeal, and an appeal takes a very long time to be heard. It's full briefing on the issues, oppositions, replies, oral arguments, so a full appeal process of the lower court's ruling, which dismissed the case as having no standing. And so what the Court of Appeal said is like, look, the motion before us is that we need to issue an emergency stay, so temporarily block Biden's student debt relief program while the overall injunctive relief request is pending. So that overall injunctive relief request pending the overall appeal is what is going to be pending. So in other words, just blocking for a very long period of time the student debt program from being implemented. That is what is at stake here. And what the Court of Appeal said is, look, we're temporarily blocking you, Biden, and now we're going to consider if we should block you and block your program for a longer period of time while we actually hear the appeal. And so Biden's student debt forgiveness program has been blocked since this order, October 21st of 2022. And this is depriving students across the country of relief that they so desperately need and that they should have. Look, in Republican administrations, the presidents and Congress, Republican-led political leaders, all immediately, how do we bail out the billionaires? How do we bail them out? How do we give relief and tax cuts? Look, this is very surgical right here, what Biden is doing for people who really need the relief, which would actually be very beneficial to the economy because it would basically remove the barriers that these people are facing from participating in the economy and buying a home and buying lots of things that they want to do and just generally not worrying about all the student debt. But here, the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals said, look, we're temporarily blocking it. Now we need to consider if we need to block it more long-term as we consider the appeal. But the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeal has done nothing since October 21st. Now, I would expect and hope that at any minute right now we would hear from the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeal. And what I hope is that they deny the relief that's being requested by the states here, because if the relief is granted, then the Biden student debt program would likely be blocked for a significantly longer period of time. Now, one of the things that I thought was taking place, although judges I think would never admit to it, was that they are waiting for the end of the election results before they issue an order, because if you want to know based on the timing how I think this is going to go right now, I am not, and I love to be the optimist here, and I share with you the data when I'm optimistic, and the data points in an optimistic area. Right now, the data, to me, makes me very pessimistic that the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals is going to allow the Biden student debt program to be implemented. And I'll give you the data point that I have as a lawyer. It should be a very easy order for them to make to deny this emergency stay and to deny the injunctive relief being requested by the states if you believe there is no standing. The standing argument is so obviously incorrect that it is pretty quick to just dismiss that argument and say, look, these states aren't injured. Their claim for standing is speculative. They're just, making this up. And we won't even get to the probability of success on the merits, which is the analysis of the HEROES Act, the enabling statute which Biden administration invoked to implement their student debt relief program. And so to me, if it was going to be a very short order, it would take a very short period of time, and we would have seen that order by now. Also, the fact that they're waiting until after the elections to make their ruling, I think is done intentionally because, look, I think that they viewed that if they were to block the program before the elections, it would have additional backlash on Republicans. The Eighth Circuit is very right-leaning, essentially, I think, all but one members of the Eighth Circuit were appointed by Republican administrations. And so that's how it's constituted. So I'm not confident based on the judges of the Eighth Circuit, the time that it's taking, and the timing with the election. So I have concern there. But to me, the biggest issue here is they made this order October 21st, temporarily blocking the student debt loan program. We're now November 10th, as of the day I'm recording this video. What are you doing? Like, you are playing with the lives of people. You are screwing people over. And it's one of the things that when you look at the results of the election, when you look at the lessons that can be drawn from these midterms, it's stuff like this that the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeal is doing right now that America is just so done with. Like, we want to help Americans. We want to help people. This isn't just how do we help billionaires get more yachts and how do we help deca millionaires make sure they could hide their money overseas. Like, that's not, how do we focus on memes and Trump cult memes and weird rallies? Like, America is done with that crap. America's like, how do we help real Americans? How do we help people who work hard? How do we help workers get the wages that they deserve, wages with dignity? And how do we make sure we improve working conditions? And how do we help unions do their work? And how do we make sure that women's reproductive rights are protected? And how do we bring more jobs here? Like, how do we do things for people? And none of this like toying with the lives of Americans with these Republican states, bringing esoteric Federalist Society arguments that, that their taxes, that they're small, they claim to be small government and they want to decrease people's taxes. But their overall argument here is that they want to tax people more on the debt relief. They want to tax that in the future as income. Come on here. We're just done with that. We're pro-normal. We want to do what's right for people. We want to make sure that we honor our commitments. And what the Eighth Circuit is doing right now in taking this long is utterly pathetic. We'll see what they rule. The fact that they've already taken a few weeks, to me, is unacceptable. It's unacceptable. And they had an expedited briefing schedule. Why are they waiting this long? And we'll see what they do, but none of this is, to me, appropriate. Okay, it's everything Americans are rejecting, and Americans need to know what is taking place. It is a Republican-led court and Republican states that they are the ones who are attacking the student debt relief program. It's not both sides. It is one side that is doing it, and it is all Republicans. Republican judges, Republican-led states, all attacking citizens of America. Annoying, unfortunate, really, really bugs me. But I'm glad I can share with you these facts. But we'll keep you updated here on the MeidasTouch Network. Hit the subscribe button right now. We're on our way to 1 million subscribers, thanks to you. And also make sure to become a member of our Patreon site at patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Lots of exclusive content there, but most importantly, it gives you the opportunity to help grow this independent media platform together. No pressure if you can't do it, but it is a great, great, great way to help grow this independent community. Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. See you next time.
MeidasTouch is unapologetically pro-democracy. And look, we know you are too. So please make sure you check out our best-selling shirt and our best-selling gear, the unapologetically pro-democracy gear. And hey, while you're at it, make sure you check out my favorite shirt and one of our most famous designs, It Wasn't Rigged, You're Just a Loser, at store.meidastouch.com. That's store.meidastouch.com.